Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Nick Thompson. You may know me from Netflix Love is Blind, but on this podcast, we sit down with guests from all walks of life to hear their story, remove stigmas, and uncover what makes them tick. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Conversations with Nick Thompson. I am Nick Thompson, and today's guest is a special one. His name is Kyle Stanger, and he is the founder of the brand Boys Get Sad Too. And I first learned of Boys Get Sad Too last summer in 2022. While I was trying to hone in on what my podcast was going to look like, what it was going to focus on, what some of the themes were going to be. And I actually was inspired in many ways by discovering the brand and Kyle Boys Get Sad Too. And the whole concept around it is to raise mental health awareness, specifically with men and with boys. I fully believe, as someone who lives with depression every day and spent a very large part of my life never talking about it, that it's super important to really support brands and advocates around all mental health, but especially when there's an opportunity here to have men be a little bit of focus, because we have a society that doesn't, it's getting better, but has been built around, men being men and, boys don't cry and all of these things that really have created a environment that's tough for men and males to discuss their mental health, myself included. Like, I struggle with it. I struggle talking about it. And I think it's important that I do so and that I challenge myself to do so more, but also in a positive, manner, so that people feel better knowing that they can talk about it. And we educate one another on some of these things so that we can learn from one another and we can all collectively grow to normalize these things. So very important to me to have Kyle on today. And I am excited for our conversation. I'm excited to learn more about his story and give him an opportunity to share that. And so without further ado, let's get to that conversation with Kyle. All right, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm happy to have Kyle Stanger here today with us as a guest. He is the founder of the mental health advocacy brand Boys Get Sad Too. He's a mental health advocate, and we're excited to talk all things men's mental health today. So, hey, Kyle, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I actually, I found your brand, I think it was at the beginning of the summer 2022. It was around that time when I was trying to figure out, okay, what's this podcast format going to be? What are the things I'm going to talk about? And who are potential guests that I would have? And that's how I found your brand.
Oh,
so
cool.
Yeah.
That's
so
really
I've
cool.
been following for a little while. So
I remember when you, I remember when you followed and we were like, oh wow, like I recognize the face. I was like, oh, I know where from. It's weird how things connect, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is. I've been talking so much about connection lately because I just started listening to the world after, everything's been kind of crazy. And I've just met in the last couple months so many people and connected with so many people. And it's so weird how it's we are all so similar and so connected in so many ways if we just pay attention to it,
100%. It's very important, I think, to always I always remind myself that there's so many, although things can look very different, we got so many similarities across the board, right?
I totally agree.
And that I try and focus on those more than the differences, right?
Oh, exactly. It's it's so funny how much, and that's part of the reason I want to have this podcast. If we just listen to each other and you find what you do agree on, and then you focus on that, and then you'll find people you agree on with other things, and then you guys focus on those. And then we're all focused on the issues that we're facing.
And it's also having a bit of empathy, right? I think that's super important. I always try and have a conversation with people, and I'm like, if they don't get it right now, it's very easy. When I was having counseling previously, my biggest issue was always why don't they see it like me when it's so clear to me? Like when this is so 100% one way, why do other people just not see how I feel or understand what I'm saying right now? And I kind of left the counseling sessions and was just like, I'm going to be a lot happier when I just accept that people just don't always see things the way you see it. And that's cool, you know, like there's a kind of like a goodness in saying, if they don't get it, that's cool. I can't like beat myself up or try and spend my life trying to make people see everything the way I do. I just have to appreciate that some things just is never going to be right. So yeah, that's how.
You're so right.
That's how I don't keep myself up at night worrying about this kind of stuff. So yeah, but it takes time, you know.
It really does, and it's like I was actually having a conversation earlier today on the phone, and I'm like, I don't understand. And then I'm like, you know, what the hell this person's thinking? And I sat there and I'm like, you know what? I don't have to.
Yeah.
I know what my view is, and I'll live by that and move on with my life and then come do this. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I'd love to start with some small talk, fun questions for you, just to help myself and some of our friends here listening get to know you a little bit better. And the first one I got to ask, because your fire alarm just went off right before we started recording. What's your girlfriend making for dinner?
I have no clue what she's making. When I went in, there was a sweet potato in the oven, but I don't know what else she's making. She's come in since like I've been in the front room working, so she's kind of just doing her thing. But I'm sure I'll probably find out when I'm finished on here. So yeah,
sweet potato with a side of something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something.
So you're in London, right?
Yep.
So I'm curious, for those of us who traveled there, what is your favorite thing to do? Or those of us who haven't, what's your favorite thing about London or favorite thing to do in London?
Favorite thing. So I'm like a real city boy. So I'm born in London. I've lived in the same part of London pretty much my whole life. I always say to my girlfriend that I want to move out and go to the countryside. But every time we move out, or every time we've gone out for like prolonged periods of time, when we go to the countryside, I'm always like, I just kind of, I just want to kind of get back to like the city. And she's like, babe, like you keep talking about wanting to move out, like when we're like older and having kids and stuff. And I'm like, you know, she's like, but whenever we leave and we go to the countryside, all you want to do is go back to London. But I think that the main thing for me is there's just like always something going on. Yes. And I'm very much like, I'm like undiagnosed ADHD. So for me, it's super important to always have like things to occupy. Yeah. Always have things to occupy me. And I know like some people will kind of like say, it's nice to get the peace and quiet of say like the countryside, but I also almost like I also love being in the city where there's like constant like things going on and like cars going past and like lots of noise, and I don't know, like it's nice to have it not, but I don't know, I really enjoy the like just city, like what a city's like, you know, the bright lights and like there's just so many people, so many different cultures, so many different restaurants. Like when I go to places,
you literally sound like me describing Chicago to people. This is literally what I say. It's like different neighborhoods, different cultures. I'm like, I always tell my friends, I'm like, we got to leave Division Street. Division Street's like the main street in my neighborhood, and most of my friends live close enough. And then here we are every weekend. We're like eating dinner, brunch, or doing something on Division Street. And it's like we gotta get out. But then when I go to we were talking before recording, like I go to the suburbs where my family lives and I'm bored out of my mind. Everything's just slow, and that's okay. Like it doesn't mean that there's not a space for that, but I'm like you, I want the stimulation. I want to go on a walk and be stimulated.
So that's why I love London. I think there's lots of places in the UK now where you can like become successful or you can make it happen. But just for me, I just feel like this is the place for me to do it. I just feel like it's my home, isn't it? Like, so, you know.
Yeah, I've been to London once. My friend is actually out in Harrogate. If you don't know where that is, it's
I know where that is.
They have like I think they still have it, but a water bottle company called like Harrogate Water or something. It's like their claim to fame. But so is there a movie or TV show that you've recently watched that you would recommend?
Oh, I actually watched well, I haven't watched it all, but I watched on Netflix last night. It was called like Pepsi Where's My Jet. I don't know
I
if you can get
watched
it in the
that.
States. I thought I'm on the last episode.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really cool documentary. Obviously, it hasn't really heated up yet, but I just thought it was. I love obviously like advertising, marketing,
Yeah.
like communication to people. I love the fact as well that they had obviously like the Pepsi marketing execs like giving their like take on the story,
Take on it. I know.
and then him giving his, and like him being like they definitely knew what they were doing, and I was like, these guys obviously I don't know what, maybe it was like the 70s or the 80s maybe, or maybe
I think it was the 80s or 90s because
Yeah.
I kind of remembered it as it was coming through
Yeah.
as I was watching it.
And it was like, what, say 30 years ago, right? And
Yeah.
these execs, if they were lying about it being an accident, were still like incredibly convincing on like, yeah, we never meant to do that at all. Like that was not the plan. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting. So if anyone wants to go watch it, then go and do that.
I endorse that too. You know what it reminded me of? Do you ever see the movie Catch Me If You Can? Like the vibe of it, where it's just like quick-witted and there's like lots of scams going on and everyone's just kind of lying to themselves about it.
Yeah. I just love like the little guy winning as well, like the whole story. I mean, I haven't seen the end of it yet, but like I assume he's gonna get something decent out of it, and I just love that, like the money to Pepsi didn't really mean anything most probably, but like to him it was life-changing or a life-changing opportunity, and sometimes they're clever. Big corp makes a mistake and pays the price for it, and like a little guy wins, then I'm all for it. I love it. I think it's great.
I love that too. Well, it's because they're so neglectful. Like they'll just, when you're a big corporation, you just do whatever you want. And then you just like, if a fine comes out of it or something, you just pay it. It's kind of, it's gross in a sense, but I'm with you. I love when the little guy wins.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite, well, you kind of alluded to this. What's your favorite thing to do in your leisure time, or one of your hobbies?
I work quite a lot, but I do have a dog. I've got a dog, and take him out.
What kind of dog?
Got a bulldog, English bulldog.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, his name's Tank. Cool. Yeah, he's super. Yeah, he's good. He's great for like city life because he doesn't need huge walks, but he's still really active, likes to go out. So I do a lot of stuff with him, and then I like just going out with my friends, going to like music events and stuff. But
nice.
Work's so full on that like I don't get anywhere near as much like free time as I would as I would do or as I did before. And also like it's my passion, but I would say like it kind of borders into hobby sometimes.
Right.
Like I enjoy it so much that like during Christmas I have to like force myself to like put the laptop down, or like, do you know what I mean? When I'm on holiday, I have to force myself. Well, when I go away for the weekend, I have to force myself to put the laptop down, like, because otherwise I feel like I just really want to like check on things, make sure things are okay, or do a little bit of work here or there, or like, do you mean, reply to DMs and stuff. And you end up in a kind of a vicious circle of like overworking yourself because you really love it, but then ending up like every couple months being like, just exhausted, burnt out, burnt out, for sure. So it's like a blessing and a curse, I suppose.
I think it's important too. I always talk about self-care because I'm similar in the sense of when I'm not working at a company right now, I'm doing my own things, but I will, for 2023, I'm showing myself grace and I'm building better connections. Like those are my quote New Year's resolutions. But one thing that I've had to do is like shut off my notifications. And I know that's hard because your business relies on your social media, and your business relies on quickly getting those DMs if someone wants to make a purchase, because if it's not top of mind, it might not happen. So that's got to be how do you toe that line?
I used to have it on all the time. And I think if there's people listening, you probably might feel this as well. I would be your typical person that was like, I need to be on it, like in case that email comes through and it needs my urgent attention. I've then like got to the point where I'm so burnt out that I've been like, no matter what comes through, I just can't deal with it right now. So like on the weekend, I'll like turn my email notifications off. I'll turn my WhatsApp notifications off. I'll turn like the relevant stuff, you know, tell my mum, like, text me if you need me, don't WhatsApp me. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. And I've come back and been like, nothing's happened. Like, I mean, I didn't get any emails thinking, I'm like, okay, so do it the next weekend, come back to it, nothing's happened. And I'm like, you know, I think there's definitely, if it's there and you see a notification come up or you see an email come up, you'll talk yourself into this, like, it's important, I need to deal with it right now. When in reality, you could just easily leave it till Monday and it will be no, do you know what I mean? The person that gets the reply will think no better of you for it, like not in a negative way, but like it doesn't matter. Like, I was convinced in my head, like if I want to be the like have this best brand and I want to get like far in life, I need to make sure I'm on the ball 24/7. Like it's just not the case, like not the case, you know. And like you can definitely build up that happy medium. So I have gone into a place where like I turn off a lot of notifications. Like our website obviously notifies you like every time. I turn that off when I'm not like working or in work mode. I don't have it on my phone, to be honest. It's all on my laptop, so I can just close the lid and not see it. So yeah, so there's things you can do, and definitely if anyone's there thinking no, but like, you know, I have to, probably it's not as important as you think it is, and just try and shut yourself off from it, and like you'll see that. Now, I used to think, like, what happens if like the site goes down and I'm not there to like deal with the problem? And it's like, never happened. Do you know what I mean? And what's the worst case? Yeah. What's the like worst case scenario? You know, like you 2 days, maybe a day. Like, do you know what I mean? But it does a lot for your like mental state to not 24/7 be on.
Yeah. Well, you start owning your time, and what I realized, and you said it. Guess what? People are not thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you. And I know that's hard. That's hard to like grasp. And it's like one thing that I've like really learned coming out of like, you know, being on a reality TV show where a lot of people like until you pop up somewhere on their feed or they're going through stories and they follow you or they get a headline, they're not ever thinking about me. And it's like, that it's not that I didn't know that, but it's like one of those things where like now I've trained myself to be like, you know what? Like when I feel like I want to engage on social media, I'll go do it. When I don't want to do it, I won't do it. And no one, you know, and I message this to people that have worked for me or on my team before, like company X isn't going to go out of business if you don't reply to that email. It's not going to happen. No. And that's a hard mindset for us to get in. And I know it's probably a little different here in the States. We have a little bit of a different, the culture is very aggressive on, you know, you're on the clock all the time in a lot of instances, but it's really not, especially in corporate or startups, but it's really not like the business isn't going to go out of business. You're, you know,
what's smart it's normally a smart technique. Like when you're talking like organizations, it's a smart technique where they kind of like put this responsibility on you where you feel like if you're not 24/7 sorting things for them, like you're impacting, like, do you know when, I've never experienced it in a company before because like I've always kind of like done my own thing or worked for myself, so I've never really had like a real like organization. But it's like in a team, right? It's kind of like you feel like they're like you're going to let your teammates down if you're not like doing your job properly, so you really like overcompensate by like burning yourself into the ground. And like sometimes you have to say, you know, like, no, hold on a minute, like I'm like working to live, I'm not living to work. Like it's two different, do you know what I mean? And I think there's loads of reasons why you can get bogged down in it, but definitely they put that. I always see people say about like they blurring the work-life balance by like giving you loads of like things that you can do at work, the gym and breakfast and whatever. So like you just get in at 6 and you leave at 10 every night because everything's at work, right? And I mean, it's an interesting concept and one that I think you should definitely be, like everything you do, right? I always think it's important to be, if you're on social media, it's important to at least to have it in your mind that potentially like there's a bad or untrustworthy people trying to like make you use it in a certain way, right? And same with work or your boss or whatever. Like it's important to always think about, not necessarily always think about number one, but have that in your head, you know, of like, how is this impacting me and is this really like benefiting me?
Right.
Am I getting what I want out of it, right?
Right. And it's no one's responsibility to take care of you except you. So if you don't take care of yourself and you don't, and this is what I tell every single person that I work with or talk to, if you don't put yourself first, no one else is going to do it for you. And in some cases, people will take from you. So then you're giving away stuff you don't even have. And that's when you totally can lose yourself. You get burnt out and all of that stuff. So I think it's a good message to just keep reminding people of, balance. You've got to balance. You've got to take care of yourself.
100%.
Yeah. So I want to ask, this is like my new favorite question to ask people because it always segues into a good conversation.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were growing up? And that could be through the years because it changes for most, it seems.
My upbringing was very unconventional. So when I was like 4, my parents took me to an open casting for a character, and we didn't know what it was at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I basically ended up like getting the role by accident, essentially. And I basically then did that for like 6 years. So I played the part of Lumpy the Heffalump in the Winnie the Pooh films.
Oh my God.
And I did that kind of would have been from like 4 or 5 years old till I was like 12. And then throughout school, I carried on doing other things. So while I was like filming that all over
so you were like accidentally an actor.
Yeah. So I mean, in inverted commas, like a child actor, but so I basically did that throughout school, and I ended up doing like loads of different commercials, like photo shoots, like whatever. So I kind of was always at school, sat there like learning, but I was already like earning money. I was already like saving for my future. So although I was sat in school learning, I was also sat in school like I'm kind of already like at the end of school already.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like I was already like, I don't know, one year I had like 80 authorized absences from school because I was working like on so much stuff. Like, and
how did you balance that?
Like,
were you a good student? Did you hate school? Did you hate acting?
I wasn't very academic until my like later on in school. I basically met this teacher, and I actually reached out to him recently. And this is like for anyone listening, if you have like, I know someone in your like past that you're like, do you know what, they did an amazing thing for me. I had this teacher called Mr. Pierce, and he was the first teacher to ever say to me, like, I don't know what all these other teachers have said to you, like, you're not academic, you're not smart, don't worry about it, you're good at sport. He was like, you were just like allowing that to become like you're just sitting there not bothering. Like he was like, you're definitely smart enough to like get the grades, like high grades. Like, I'm not, he just didn't let me basically like live off the fact that every single school report was like, yeah, he's good at sports, so it's okay that he's not academic. And he just like pushed me to like want more for myself. And I recently like found his email online, and I like reached out to him and was just like, oh, it's weird. Like, I don't know if you remember me or whatever, but like if someone said to me, where did I turn from being like a bad student into a good student? I would say like it was your influence on telling me that like I had to want more for myself and had to work harder for myself, and that like the excuses everyone else had made for like me not putting the effort in was like, do you know what I mean, couldn't define me. And I ended up leaving school with really good grades actually, like, and my parents were so proud of me because I was never expected to, but I emailed him back and he was over the moon. He was like, I remember the lessons, I thought about you a few times since then. Like I told him about what I was doing now, and he was like, I'm so proud of you. And he was like as a teacher, he was like, you very seldomly get this, but he was like, when this happens, it makes my whole life feel like it was like for a reason. He was like, because I've become a teacher to teach children and hopefully help them into like adults where like they're happy and they're doing what they love. And he was like, it's made my whole like year that you've messaged me. And I was like, so good to do it. But I think when I left school,
that's awesome. By the way, I want to pause because I've been talking about this a lot too. And in fact, this book, my friend Chris wrote this, and it's about giving gratitude even in hard times. And that's an amazing story, because I always say teachers and nurses are like they're doing the work. Like they are working very hard. They're not making a lot of money, or maybe what they should be making. And to hear you say, oh, I said thank you for this and showed gratitude, and have you say he said back he doesn't get it that often, like that breaks my heart, because you know that someone's being a teacher for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because it isn't for money.
No,
like
no.
it isn't for an easy job. So just the power of gratitude and sharing that, I just encourage
100%.
everyone always to do that.
I feel like as well, sometimes, like, I don't really feel it because I'm quite a confident person, but I can feel like sometimes people feel a bit embarrassed almost to like show gratitude. Like it's a nerve-wracking thing to like, well, I suppose it is nerve-wracking, right? To email a teacher. It could have gone horribly wrong. He could have been like, who on earth are you? Like, like thanks, but that he could have been like, that's weird, like, don't email me, like, do you know what I mean? I could have had that in my head. Like,
how'd you get my email?
I would have been like, oh my god, that's so embarrassing. But you know, and like, I think sometimes you really got to push yourself out of your comfort zone to be like, no, you know, like, it's important. And at that period of time, I think it was like, I don't know whether it was last year's resolution, but I wanted to do it more last year, and I made conscious effort in my head. I'd say that's probably like my strength of like, once I see something and I want to do something, I can build it into my life quite quickly, that I consciously, so like, do you mean if I know I'm feeling down, I can consciously stop all the little things that are going to make it worse. So I decided I was going to show more gratitude, and like, it's honestly, like, when you like make a phone call, I know, like a phone contract.
I'm going to show this too. Like, I've been writing down 3 every morning. When I get to my desk, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And I've been talking more and more about it. More people are messaging me too on Instagram saying they're doing it, and it helps. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Like, whenever I call, it's like even little things in life you can just build in. I'll call, like, I don't know, an issue with my car insurance, and I'll call the company and I'll say like, hey, and I always try and start the conversation with like, how are you? Like, how's your day been? And honestly, when you say how are you to someone that works on the like customer service line, they're always like, I know. I'm good. Like, thanks for asking. And I'm like, oh, the reaction, you don't get asked that a lot. And they're like, no, like, we never get asked that. And I'm like, oh, how are you? Like, I hope your day's okay. And honestly, the reaction is always so good. And I'm always like, I showed my mum, put it on loudspeaker, and was like, listen, like, when you actually genuinely just, and if you're calling up for like, I don't know, an issue with something,
which is the only time you're calling.
If you're asking someone how they are, it sets the whole like conversation off in a different like tone. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when you call up someone and you're just like, I've got a problem with my contract, or blah, blah, blah. Like, you just
sets the tone.
It sets the tone. They have a horrible day. Like, it's not their fault, like, you know, that your car insurance is messed up or whatever. So I always like remind myself on these things that, I mean, these people, like, it's ask as many people as they are, how are you? And like, you always get such a good reaction. Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, I genuinely want to know, like, how are you, as opposed to just, it's so easy to just go through life, you know, and just be like, I'm just in my own little world and not thinking about like how, do you know what I mean, other people. Because essentially, like, they're paid to do a job, but they're also like doing a job that helps other people. Like, do you know what I mean? And if they didn't do that job, then you wouldn't have that.
First, I always do that. I always say, how are you doing? How was your day? What I'm trying to do now is say things like, what's something positive that's happened today? What's something good that's happened to you today? You know, and really give them that space. But I totally agree too. It sets the tone for a conversation. And even if there's a frustrating part, I'm always clear to say, I am not frustrated with you. I am frustrated with this situation.
I'm sorry.
And that goes a long way too.
100%. And it's just nice.
We need someone to do it.
It's nice to be nice. Like, I always, when like me and my girlfriend, we've been together 5 years now, but she said to me, like, early on in our relationship, she was like, I knew that you were really nice when we went through the drive-through together. And like, once we'd been through the drive-through together a few times, she was like, you're always like so like grateful to the person that serves you. Like, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a lovely day. And she was like, you can tell like someone's like how they are. She's got this thing about like, you can tell. She used to work, her dad has a restaurant. She used to work like the tables. She was like, you tell a lot about a person, about how they treat like staff, like waiters and like staff in a restaurant, or like people serving food. She was like, and normally like people that are not so nice will be quite rude, like at a restaurant, like quite dismissive, like not address you properly, like whatever, or like, you know, you might get people that click their fingers for you to come over or whatever. And she's like, you can tell like normally genuinely quite nice people, because they're like normally quite like, they make an effort to just be nice, you know, because it's a difficult job. And like,
it is. And someone has to do it. Someone has to flip the burgers. Someone has to wait the tables. Someone has to take that angry call when your insurance bill's messed up. We need people to do this to keep a functioning society. So just because you have the luxury to do something else or the circumstances to do something else doesn't mean that those people are any less worthy of kindness or any less worthy of gratitude. I'm the same way. Like I am, and we, a tip here, like 20% is the standard. Like even if someone is, not the best server or not the, I like, unless something is horribly wrong, I try to like minimally tip 20% because this person's making like $5 an hour. It's like, and you don't know what someone's got going on in their day. You don't know the struggles that they're facing outside of that job or at that job. So just show kindness. That's the message, I think. So I cut you off. So you were an actor and then you showed gratitude to your teacher, but
I think I think that's what I wanted to go on to do. Like when I left school, like kind of what happened to me was, so I grew up supporting my dad who had clinical depression. And then I kind of hit like 17, 18 years old and I didn't fail my, like, I don't know what it would be in the States, but it was like after secondary school, like it was kind of like just below like university. So I don't know what that would be called.
Like your diploma here. We call it a diploma.
Yeah. So I kind of like didn't do as well as I wanted to do in that, but like it was still manageable to go back the next year and like finish in decent grades and like head off to university. But I kind of decided that I didn't want to go to uni, and I was like, this is like, I'm really not enjoying this anymore. Like I just wasn't having a good time at school, and I had school was amazing. Like I loved going to school. Like I went to an all boys school. It was like hilarious the whole time. Like we'd have so much fun. Like
shenanigans.
It was just great. Like it was great. I think it was like probably if I could go back and relive it all again, I would. But the whole like education part of it like just wasn't for me. And like I just found it really stressful, and because of that I think I just kind of like was like, this is too hard, like I'm tapping out now. Like I'd kind of reached kind of my like academic kind of where I felt comfortable, and I just sat on a sun lounger with my parents in Greece, and I was just like, I am miserable, like I don't want to go back to school. My parents were like, well, you've kind of always been working, right? Like it's not like you haven't been working your whole life, so why don't you just leave school, try and do it full time, and if you can't do it full time, then like you can go back next year.
And
like,
is that acting, you mean? Like acting full time?
I was just doing it all, like, I was doing like a photo shoot for a clothing brand, and then I don't know, a little bit of voiceover for an advert, like whatever. It was just anything in the performing arts industry, like I would do, like, like I wasn't particularly, you can't, when you're not like a known name, if you want to try and do it full time, you kind of have to be willing to do everything. I was one time I was in there's like in the back of a newspaper, there's like a little segment, and it's like related to like dating and whatever. And I played like one of the characters in that a few times. I mean, it's like it's pennies. It's like probably the equivalent of like $300 a day's work, right? So when you're thinking you might only get like 2 of them a month or 3 of them a month, like, it wouldn't have worked if I didn't live at home with my parents and they weren't like, do you know what I mean, helping me out and going easy on me. But like I went and did that full time. And I had a really good time, and like I was enjoying myself, but like it becomes a little bit like soulless, I would say. Like I got signed by like a fashion agency, and I was going to like runway castings and stuff, and it very much kind of walk in the room, no one speaks to you, you walk forwards, you walk back, like they raise their hand if they want one of your cards, it just has like your name and stuff on. And if you don't, like, if they don't want any of them, then they just don't say anything, can you just leave? Like it's quite demoralizing. Like just kind of, I used to go to them and be like, I always thought I was like I don't know, like an idea maker, and I was like, I mean, loved coming up with ideas and doing stuff, and I'd always like wanted to do my own projects. And my dad's a teacher, and I'd always like helped him out, or like, my dad teaches vocational subjects, so I'd seen him kind of do like his own thing, and I was just kind of like, I kind of sat there and was like, is this is this all I'm gonna do? Like, because I feel like I'm totally not even using my brain. And I kind of was like, I need to use my brain for something. And then sadly, like, I mean, life events happened. Someone quite close to us took their own lives, and I'd obviously grown up. That's okay. Like, and I'd grown up supporting my dad with depression, and I was just like, look, I've got tons of time on my hands, so let me just see if I can do something like to help, right? So I'm just gonna like come up with this idea. I was doing fit like modeling for River Island, which is basically like they bring you in, and I was like the size small, the perfect like size small, and they would like put the t-shirt on like extra small, a small, a medium, and a large, and then they would be like, how does it fit? And it would just be like a panel of like the team like going, okay, this doesn't fit, or that leg's longer than the other, or like, and then they would make the adjustments for next season, right? And like it was like quite fun, to be fair. They was always really nice, and you have good chat, and it wasn't hard work. But like because of that, I was like, I'm sure I can come up with a clothing brand. I can't be that difficult. It didn't look that hard. So I just thought I'll be able to make like some t-shirts and just sort of sell them online and make some money for charity and just like raise a bit of awareness, and like it'll be just like a good thing to do, like keep me occupied, and like I would probably learn some bits out of it. And then basically over the space of the next like 18 months, it just kind of like got bigger and bigger and bigger, essentially. So I'm not sure if I ever really had.
2018 you launched it,
so,
right?
Yeah, so it started into 2018, and I was working on it full time late 2020. So it took like 2 years.
Wow, that's
roughly about 2 years to kind of get it to the point where like, well, I mean, it could like it didn't pay me a penny of a wage until 2 years in. So I worked, I was modeling basically, and like working, well, I say working wasn't a job, you know, I was just hobbying this brand that I'd come
You were
up
hustling.
With. Yeah.
You were hustling. No paycheck.
I was just like doing something because I thought, wow, this is like really like enjoyable and rewarding. And then kind of like it got to that point in like 2020 where it was like, you know, I mean, business people had started to reach out to me at that point. Like someone was like, you need to get an accountant. Like, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
That's terrifying.
Like, I'm just in like the upstairs like bedroom of my parents' house still. I was like, what? I must have been like 23, 24 at this point. I was still living at home because I was just like, I loved doing it so much that I was like, anything else, if I had to go like, do you know what I mean, rent my own flat, move out, do like those kind of grown up life things, I'm going to have to give up this dream of like running this and do. And I just wasn't willing to do it. I'm very fortunate. My parents brought me up like with this thing in my head, like where they were like, you can do whatever you want. And like, we don't want you to like just do something because you need to make money. You know, we don't want you to like spend your life in doing something you're not happy with. So like, do you know what I mean, we'll always be here to support you, like, so you can get to where you need to go doing something you love versus like.
That's such a great way to be brought up. It's like, you know, and I can, like right now I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff and I'm not making any money. Like I think about like when you were talking about doing it because it meant something, like that's why I do this podcast. Like people think there's money in podcasting, and until you're like Joe Rogan, there's not. Like I spend money to make this podcast because I think it's important, but it's so satisfying. And I think, you know, getting ourselves out of this mindset, especially now with like all the layoffs and everything going on, which we were chatting about a little while ago, getting ourselves out of this mindset that our value is tied to our job. Get in the mindset of your value is what you put out there in the world. And 100%. Not to say that if you enjoy your job or you want to, like, great. And I know some people have like responsibilities that they just are stuck in a sense, but that comes back to like finding the time to do you, finding the time to have your hobby, even if it's not making you money, but it's filling your cup, right? That's what's so important. And I think now what we're seeing once again, and this is I was recently laid off. I told you that, I've shared that before. Realizing that like the moment they need to save a penny, you don't matter anymore. So like take the time when you're at a company or when you're at a job to remember that in the back of your head so that you are fulfilling yourself too. Because when that's gone, you know, that's one of the 5 most impactful traumatic events that can happen to people. Number 1 is death. Number two is a divorce. And then I forget some of the other ones, but like in that top 5 is job loss. So these are like, these are hard events. And if you haven't put the effort
100%.
into, if you haven't put the effort in to make sure that you're okay, it can be devastating.
My dad's a teacher, and partly the reason that we kind of like, I come to kind of, he basically teaches vocational subjects, and obviously like my dad who had depression, but he was laid off 3 times in sort of my childhood as a teacher, right? Because he teaches engineering, mechanics to the naughty children, like the kids that are like kicked out, and like when the funding's low, that's the first thing they get rid of, right? So he was made redundant like 3 times, and like saw him be like, I've literally given up my life to help people, and they won't even the council, the organization above that like control what goes on, aren't letting me. They're not letting me do what I want to do, which is help people. And I'm just like, he ended up like, I suppose, 15, 20 years into teaching, and like no higher up, no better, still kind of like struggling to find somewhere or settle down somewhere, because every time it was like funding issues and stuff. And that's kind of why I was like, if I want to do something to help, it needs to be something on my own 2 feet, because I'd seen my dad had the rug pull so many times, like, teaching at this place, and then there was no funding, so they cut all the jobs, and then like, and I was just like, you when you're not in control, or you rely on someone else to give you the money to like say, I don't know, charities like great, obviously I'm not thingy, but they rely on donations, right? They literally rely on people to just give over money in return for, I suppose, the feeling of like knowing you're helping someone, which a lot of people don't want to do. And I was just kind of like, I needed to come up with something that I felt, do you know what I mean, was able to like make people feel like they're doing something good, but they're also getting something in return that they enjoy, which also then like feeds on to a cause as well, like feeds onto a conversation topic, feeds onto do you know what I mean, encouraging other people, like it displays a message that like sets a precedent in like in an environment that like, so there was loads of reasons and I was just like, when you rely on someone else, say I would have set it up and I would have gone to like the local council and I would have said, this is what I want to do. I want to set up like a non-for-profit organization, and I want you to give me this amount of money, and it's going to run it for every year, and I'm going to teach whatever. Maybe 1 year would have worked, maybe 2 years would have worked, but then eventually they would have been like, no, maybe we're not thinking about this year. And then before I knew it, it would have just been like, all snatched away from me, and I would have been like panicking, like trying to find other places that like would donate much. Do you know what I mean? Like this. You
spend more time fundraising than you do actually contributing.
And then like I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to let myself be in that position. So like I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to do it on my own 2 feet. Like, like, because when you have someone enabling you to do it, like it can snatch it away from you. And I, like you said about the job layoff, like I literally saw my dad like on like, do you know what I mean?
The impacts, I'm sure,
so
on him.
It's just horrible. Like I would say like, he obviously had like chemical imbalance, like depression, like he also had like, horrible life circumstances, bad things that had happened along the way, and like it definitely contributes hugely, to someone's self-esteem, confidence. Like, if you don't go out every day and believe that you can, like, say, make a difference, or believe that you can go get that job, it doesn't take long before it really you really grind it down. Like, he was very much like that. Had lots of knockbacks, and there's only so many knockbacks someone can take before they stop wanting to progress further, because do you know what I mean, a step forward feels like another potential for another knockdown. So you just kind of stagnate, like I'd rather stay here than move forward and receive any more knockbacks. So it's
wow. Bad, I feel that. I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
What was it like for you growing up with a father who suffered from depression, and when did you figure it out, or was he open about it? Because obviously, even your brand, but like it's not always easy for men to talk about it.
So my parents
or even acknowledge it.
Yeah, my parents were always really open about it. I don't think I mean, obviously, we're talking. I wouldn't know when, like, my earliest memories would be like knowing that my dad had, like, do you know what I mean, this extra need. I suppose that would be my earliest memories, and know that, like, do you know what I mean, this resulted in like mood swings and, do you know what I mean, like stuff like that. And I was always told, like, you know, he used to go in and out the doctor sometimes and would have like pottery therapy. And like,
wow,
I grew
okay.
up, I mean, I grew up with him, like, to be honest, a good thing really, because I grew up with my dad having an issue, but going to lots of therapy, trying pottery
Right.
therapy, trying talking therapy, trying CBT. Do you know what I mean? So when I had
Yeah.
my own issues, I was like, well, like,
It's normalized
there's only
to
one,
you.
yeah, there's only one thing to do. I just went straight to our GP, which is like the doctor, and I just said, hey, like, I feel terrible. Like, I wake up every day, like, I feel like I'm just constantly on the brink of tears. Like, I just hate my life right now. Like, it just felt like it almost felt natural
Right.
to do that, because I'd seen like my dad do it so much. And I think that's one of the like fortunate things. It's obviously very difficult. Like, I'd realized when I hit 17, 18 years old that when you sort of sacrifice your own thoughts and feelings because someone around you like needs more support. I hit 17, 18 years old and I just didn't really have any good understanding of like how to deal with my own stuff. So like, I then had to like learn how to kind of address my own feelings, because I'd always just set them aside for the fact of like trying to make it okay for someone else, you know. But yeah, it's difficult, but it definitely teaches you lots of stuff about yourself. And I always say to people, like, there's always an opportunity to look at everything, although it doesn't feel like it at the time, as like it can be a blessing in the long run, right? So like it can teach you something about yourself. Like, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for like, you know, him having that problem. And although I wouldn't want to wish it upon him, like it took that for us to come out. Like, he's much more capable now. Like, we know, me and my dad, we have the similar brain. Like, we always have to keep on top of it, right? Like,
That's the thing.
For me, it's a constant management, and I'm lucky that I watched him struggle to manage it, where I kind of knew how to manage it already. You know, I know the slip-ins, I know like kind of how to deal with it. I can talk him out of it quite quickly. Like, do you know what I mean? From seeing it happen so many times, so I've got a good understanding of kind of like how it works and stuff. So
you've been able to help him, almost in a sense, from your personal experience growing up with him.
Yeah,
so
I'd say like I was the youngest counselor ever, because I used to like, it's difficult when, do you know what I mean, we're family, like we lived in like not a very particularly big house, like, do you know what I mean, all these things kind of add into it. But like, I would always, especially now as well, like as I've got older, like in my late teens and early 20s, like, do you know what I mean, I understand kind of like the process, and I understand kind of how he thinks, that I can kind of I can catch him, you know. Like, if he's getting stressed, I know that that's like when he feels under pressure, like that's one of his triggers for feeling quite down, or like, do you know what I mean, not being himself, right? So I know when like he's one of these people that has a tendency to take too much on and then get too stressed, you know. So I'm like, Dad, like, I'm so happy for you, like that you're doing X, Y, Z, but let's just think like,
pump the brakes.
We don't want to, we don't want it to get too stressful for you. And he like capable, like, you know what I mean, I'm probably making him sound like he's not capable.
No.
No, but like I had to say to him, you know, like, you don't want to take on too much. Like at work, for example, he's just such a yes. He wants to say yes to everyone and like help everyone and make everyone happy.
He's trying to help.
Yeah, he's always trying to help people, and then I think forgets that, you know, there's only one of him, and then he'll get stressed out that he can't deliver on everything he said he can. And I have to say to him, look, like, you're not a superhuman, like you can't deliver on everything, like you have to set people's expectations to what like you're capable of, and like that's important. And he'll be like, yeah, you're right, you know, like, do you know what I mean, it's something that, and I need the same too, like, do you know what I mean?
I think we all do, like it's like, you know, I think you're clearly an empathetic person, and you know I am too, and in your dad obviously is too, but you know, I saw this and it's so silly, but it like really hit me. I talk about it a lot now, and I might have mentioned it earlier, but like, if your cup is full, overflow into other people. If your cup isn't full, focus on yourself. You know, you because you can. It's so, when you see someone struggling or you have an opportunity to help, or you feel it. Sometimes you feel it, you know, you want to jump in and help, and that's the right thing to do. That's the sign of a good heart. But at the same time, like, you can't do anything if you're trying to do too much. Everything's a priority. Nothing's a priority. Know? So was your first like recognition of having some depressive feelings, was that your late teens then? And you just,
yeah, I think so. I think when I hit like my whole thing was sort of failed at school in my head. And then I was like transitioning into like manhood, like kind of thing. And I
Which
remember
is so toxic.
Yeah. I was sat with my, like, once I'd been to the doctors, they said, hey, like, do you mean you can get 6 sessions, hour, 6 weeks? Like, and we're super fortunate. It's not like this everywhere, but our local, like, department is like hardly any waiting list. Some people are waiting like 2 years for appointments in the UK, but I was like seeing the next week, went and spoke, and I like, for the first period, it was all about like, I didn't feel like I was like capable. I had this one thing that I kept going over. I don't know why this became like the figurehead of the whole like situation, but it was like, if someone breaks into our house tonight, in the house is, I've got a younger sister, my younger sister, me, my mum, and my dad. And I was like, I'm expected to, if an intruder comes in here, in my head, I'm expected to go down and like fight, right? Or like go and protect my little sister and my mum, right? As like
man of the house.
And that, like me and my dad, like in my head, I would expect him to be the first one to like solve the situation. I was like, I surely am now expected to also be standing next to him in this scenario. And in my head, I was like, I'm not ready for this. Like, and it would like keep me awake at night, being like, oh my God, but like, what if we get broken into? Like, I'm just going to like absolutely like crap myself when I won't know what to do. And like, I remember going to like the doctors and just being like, oh my God, like this is so stressing me out. And obviously I spoke over it, and like you end up coming to the conclusion, you know, I just put this like responsibility on my shoulders that just no one put on me. And my mum used to be like, first of all, we're not going to get broken into. And second of all, like, no one's expecting you to do anything. Like, no one, she was like, I'm telling you now, I'm not expecting you to do anything. She was like, do you know what I mean? You're worrying about like, do you know what I mean? Something that's never going to happen, and like it's causing you all this worry. And like, I'm telling you now, like, if it happens, you don't need to do anything. Like, it's fine. And like, I don't know why, and that's kind of where the phrase come from. I was writing in a notepad at the time, and I'd written in it like, boys get sad too. And then when I come up with the idea to make a clothing brand around it, I just went back to that notepad and I saw the phrase and I was like, that is exactly how I felt at the time. Like, that is exactly how I felt at the time.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because I have been writing a lot lately in my notepad and my computer. And, you know, one of the things that I wrote out was, I was writing about my childhood, and my parents separated and got divorced when I was 5. And I put these, and I've been in therapy, I've been talk therapy, I've been doing all this stuff too. And I realized, like, oh my God, at 5 years old, I took responsibility, put it on myself, that it was my job to make sure that my sisters didn't feel disconnected. And it actually like led me to feel completely alone. And then they're 2 years younger and then 3 years younger. So they became best friends and they had each other. And it was like, my whole thing was like, I really felt for a long time that it was my job to make sure that they were okay as the bigger brother. When my parents were fighting and going back and forth, and we're going back and forth to all these different houses and moving. And it is so crazy, because nobody asked me to do that. Nor should I at 5 years old start thinking that and then think that forever. So it's so weird how we do have a tendency to just build scenarios. And my dad was great. Like, my dad was great. He was around all the time. He saw us as much as he could. It wasn't like, I mean, not perfect, but it wasn't like anyone disappeared. So it's just weird how we do these things. We come up with these scenarios.
And you just put these like responsibilities on yourself. And that's just how I like, you know what I mean? For whatever reason, that kind of, just how it all panned out basically. And it just led me to kind of,
so you wrote it in the notebook and then came back to it, and that was your Kickstarter to
that was
brand.
Basically it. I was just like, there was no like clever, like, I didn't sit down with like a spider diagram and like brainstorm like what it was to be called. It was just, I literally saw that. I took it to the printer and I just scanned like the writing of it in, and then that was the first t-shirt like we produced, was just literally my handwriting of that phrase in that book. And that was kind of like where it started. And kind of the rest is kind of history. So it was like super, it was like, just I know people say like, oh, you know, it's organic or whatever. And you normally see that like when you dig deep enough, you're like, not really organic because, you know, you already did this or there was a team behind it or whatever. But it was literally just like, I didn't say to like my family or friends, like, I'm coming up with this idea. Like it was all like, in the space of like 2 days, if you know what I mean. It was like, should I do this? Yeah, that sounds really cool. Okay, cool. Let me grab my notepad. Oh, okay, this is the one. Like, look through the pages. That's what I want to do. Scanned it in, sent it to like my friend. Probably kind of the catalyst was I knew someone at the time who had a printing company. Who printed
I was going to ask you that. Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of like I knew them. I just said, hey, do you reckon you could put this on a t-shirt for me? And they were like, yeah, cool, we can do that. Like, didn't charge me anything for it.
Oh wow.
Like just was like, yeah, cool. Like we were like friends. I'd like shot like pictures for they had a clothing brand. I shot pictures for their clothing brand. So it was just like, cool, yeah, we'll make a t-shirt for that. He's like, that's a cool idea kind of thing. And yeah, kind of that was the like catalyst of what it did. I just took a photo of it with an iPad. And
wow.
I just posted it on my personal Facebook page and just said like, hey, like I've come up with this idea, like little message, and just like put a link to like a website that I'd made in like 3 minutes just with my a logo and like
good
just
for
one
you.
product.
I'm building my website right now and it's like 6 hours in and it still sucks.
Yeah. I just did it. I was just like, you know, I had no intentions for it to ever be like a long-term thing or whatever. I didn't have any clue on any like business mechanics or
well that you kind of learn as you go, right? I mean, that's the thing. It
was all learned on the hop.
I mean, you stated that you had obviously your dad growing up, your own challenges that you worked to overcome. What's the mission behind the brand? Obviously it's to talk about boys being sad, but like what do you see out there that you want to impact?
So I think, like, for me, the reason that clothing brand made sense was because I do feel like it's probably a little bit better now than it was, but I do feel like as like a 17-year-old, I don't really feel like charities communicate to a lot of people. And like I grew up like, you know, my like family are not like well off at all, and I think it was like my granddad or the elders around me. I always remember people saying like, oh, you know, charity starts at home, and like, or do you know what I mean? My parents didn't have enough money to just be like giving like money out to other charities. Like, just didn't, like, you know, any spare money we had went on like, I don't know, like occasional takeaway or a day out. Like, it just wasn't like that. And I just think because I had that kind of upbringing, I don't know, I just didn't really feel like, I would have never thought, oh, let me just find a charity. Like, now I'm like, someone says to me, oh, I've got a problem with debt or whatever, first thing I do is go and look like what debt charities are there available. Is there a resource they can call? Like, do you know what I mean? There's so many organizations out there for every single like problem that you can have, where you can go and access normally free support on that issue. That like it's the first thing I think about now. But back then I wouldn't even have crossed my mind. I wouldn't have even thought it was a place to go and like get any help or resource. Like, I just wouldn't have. And I just thought like, because of that, maybe I didn't go and like, because there was no middle ground of anyone telling me. Well, no one told me like, okay, obviously I grew up with a dad with depression, but I don't remember anyone ever talking to us about it at school. Right. Like, I remember we got used to we used to get like safety, you know, like the questions of like, oh no, are you getting like, is there violence at your home? Are you like being hurt or stuff? But I never remember once talking about like, do you know what I mean, like mental health, or I always say like, I just don't know what like schools aren't more proactive in talking about like, you know, to kids about like it being hard to pay the bills, or like having parents that can't afford things, and like, you know, explaining to kids that, do you know what I mean, some parents can't afford things and that's okay, and there's places that you can go and you can come and talk. I mean, they do it very vaguely, and I always feel
but
like
not in like a real world context. No. That's the thing, it's never real world context,
and not enough. I always think that the one thing that worries me about like mental health or any issues like that is that I try and do everything I can to tell people that like, you're much better having like kind of what we said earlier about being scared to like show gratitude because it's embarrassing, like being scared to talk about it because you're worried you might say something wrong. Like, and I wonder whether a lot of the issues, say at schools or organizations, is like teachers are so scared that they're going to say something wrong, and people are going to turn around and be like, you can't say that like that. And do you know what I mean? It can be like something really like minor, or something that actually, you know, is just, not even minor, just like parents be like, I don't want you to talk to my kids about X, Y, Z, or I don't want you to talk to my kids about like not being able to pay bills, and put that in their head. But like, there's kids that then miss out on the important stuff, or that don't get to speak about things because, do you know what I mean? People don't want to have people just don't want to have the difficult conversations for whatever they are.
They don't. They don't know how.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They don't know how. And one of the things that I'm learning too is I've been blessed to have 6 years of therapy with the same therapist, and to like build on it, and to learn the tools and the resources, and, you know, and it's taken time, but like looking back, I was just thinking about this the other day, and I didn't know what mental health was until freshman year of high school. I didn't know that I had been, you know, I've been depressed as long as I can remember. And I had no idea that that was even a thing until I met someone in high school who actually talked about it. And it was like, that's crazy. Like, how do you learn how to operate? And you don't. And that's why there's so many people out there, and I see it now on like a grander scale, just because I get, you know, so many DMs, I get so many people reaching out, and, you know, it's the simple things that people just don't know. And it's heartbreaking when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it's just difficult. I think these people just don't know how to approach it, and it just means that we don't have these conversations. And I hope that, like, basically starting a clothing brand that kind of like it kind of presents it in a more digestible way for people that otherwise maybe aren't already involved. Like, we don't need to turn the believers into believers. Like, the people that already care about mental health, like, they're already on board, right? But it's about finding ways to turn people that don't agree, or don't care, or aren't interested, or don't understand. Like, I get so many messages from people being like, oh my God, I love mental health, blah, blah, blah. And I also get equally amount of messages of people being like, do you know what? Like, I've never struggled with mental health before. I haven't really understood it, but now I've seen your page, I actually get it now. And I feel a bit bad for either being dismissive or not understanding or whatever. And although it isn't like directly affecting me or any of my family, like, I don't personally like have any connection to struggling or whatever.
Well, you don't know.
They're like, well, you know, they're like, I really like appreciate what you're doing, and I'm going to make as much effort as I can now to support other people, you know, because before I didn't get it and now I do. So and
that's kind of, I think, like, our job as, you know, with Boys Get Sad Too, and with, you know, my podcast and my outreach, it's that I want to talk to the people that don't understand, like, I want to support the people that do, but like, I want to talk to the people that don't, because they're the ones you got to convince, to your point. And I think that's where, like, your brand is. I mean, it hit me when I saw that too, because like, I really did grow up not knowing, and it took me a very long time to figure out what was going on with me. And even longer after figuring it out, it's like, that's step 1 of 5,000, right? So it took me years after that. And when I think about that, like, little boy who didn't know why he was feeling the way that he was feeling, I want to make sure that there's less and less and less of those over time.
I mean, that's exactly. I think that's like I think the overarching goal for us is that, like, we'll be able to, once we get to a certain point and I can kind of hire to build and like flesh out more of an organization, will be that we'll have our own charity / I mean, not for profit, like, that will be subsidized by the clothing brand, that we will be able to do our own. Like, I mean, currently we obviously donate proceeds to charity, but we'll be able to have our own initiatives where I'll be able to say, like, this is where I think, you know, this is money's best used. Like, and for me, it's all about like education at the youngest possible point, you know, to teach these kids that, you know, there might be a point when you your parents are going to say to you, look, like, we don't know how we're paying the bills like this month, and there's people you can talk to, and like, it's okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Almost like stress management. But like, I remember at school, I don't know what it was like in the States for you, but like, they'd be going like, if you don't pass these exams, like your whole life is gonna, like your whole life is relying on doing well in these exams. And like my sister's like 11, right? And I'm just like to her, look, like I want you to do as good as you can, but I'm just gonna get like let you into the secret. Like the only person that this matters to is essentially like us, like our family. Like, do you know what I mean? Mum wants you to do well. I want you to do well. Like you obviously want to do well for yourself, but like whenever they say to you that like your whole life relies on this, I was like, just not, like, this is not true. I was like, I got bad grades in the tests you took. I did really bad in. Okay, so like you don't need to worry about like what like that isn't. They put so much stress on kids, right, that they feel like these small things are like hugely like the end of the world, but it's not. And it just doesn't build.
And I haven't used geometry once since I had struggled through that for a year, my sophomore year of high school. So don't, it's to your point. Like we put all these pressures as a society on people, and it puts you in a constant state of anxiety of, I got to do this, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to be homeless and all this stuff. And it's like, the reality is like, we have to educate people. Yes, we do. But like, we have to do it better. We have to teach them like real life skills, not memorizing a history book. And the education system has not evolved with the times. Like now you don't need to have a bunch of information memorized. You just need to know how to go get that information, and you need to know how to apply that information. And that's where we struggle. But
it's
we
weird.
could go on and on, but
it is weird. It's very odd. The education system's a weird one. I don't like to make opinions on things that like aren't physically in front of me for facts, but when you actually look at the education system, and I'm sure it's in the States, I'm like, the fact it hasn't changed at all. And like people will say, oh well, like they don't want these kids to be smart, they don't want them to have all the tools, like to be like powerful individuals, because there's only so many, do you know what I mean? There's only so many people that can have all the tools, like, and that's why it hasn't changed. And I'm like, like the longer that it goes on, like, I'm like, hang on a minute, like there's things that you learn here that just is no use. And like I left, and I remember doing my first tax return and being like, why have we not learned this? Like this, surely like looking after your finances should be like at least a small, like, you do like food tech, right? Where you cook, like kind of makes sense, right? You need to cook like good meals to stay healthy and live a long life. But like, there's not even one, they don't even do it like, okay, like, do you know what I mean? Like a sex ed situation where you get like a small crash course on something, like just do a small little segment for maybe like, I don't know, 4 weeks of time, rather than doing like, I don't know, another lesson. Just teach kids about like finances and budgeting and taxes, and do you know what I mean? I didn't even know what
I think if we were to teach people that stuff, there would be a hell of a lot more unrest, because when you start looking, like I have a budget that I've used, and I balance everything that I spend in different categories, and I monitor it, and I see where I'm spending more and less, and where I should be spending money, where I'm not spending money, where I'm drinking too much on the weekends, like all of that stuff. And I think if people like knew this, and they saw, hey, I'm making a crap wage, my food has gone up 10-20%, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't have access to mental health services, I don't have access to healthcare, I don't have any of this stuff. I think people would start to be like, this isn't working, this whole system is kind of a scam. And I think that's kind of why you don't get that sort of,
because they don't want people to be informed, because then people would understand that like they're not getting a good deal. So it does make sense.
So, but I just want to say, like I said, when I interacted with your brand for the first time, it really resonated with me. I love what you're doing. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to talk about it with you. But before we finish up, I wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to ask me anything for our last little piece here.
Yeah, you know what? I actually would like to know. Obviously, having been on like is it classed as a reality TV show?
Yeah, reality TV show.
What is the like? How does that, I suppose, feel like? What is it like in terms of like? I suppose you've got cameras on you from all angles. Your life then becomes completely exposed, because we don't get many like nasty comments, right, at all. But we get a few, and we get a few every now and then, like a nasty comment. It's like, like how, I mean, what's the process with that? How do you cope with it? And like, what?
That's a good question. So, you know what's funny is I, like you, I have done I used to be very insecure, very irritable, very reactive, focused on the wrong things. And through therapy and my own work and growing up and all this stuff, I've come to realize that, you know what, like I'm confident in myself. I'm a good person. I'm doing the best I can with the information that I have. And I'm always trying to put out something good in the world. And so I had this in my head. I'm like, I'm just going to be myself. And if something works out, great. If it doesn't, that's cool too. If I go home the first day or I get married, whatever happens, I'm okay with, because I know I'm just going in there being me. Yeah. And so then, as you know, you go through it, and then the show is coming out. And I just remember I was listening to, I've told this story before, but I'll tell you again. I'm listening to guys like Joe Rogan or other, people who are far more like on the political side, and they're like, oh, I can't read the comments. They're too mean. They hurt. And then it's like, Joe Rogan's a UFC fighter, the host of Fear Factor, and the comments hurt him. I'm like, I don't think I thought this through. Maybe I'm not going to be that tough. But the reality is, it's like there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate the whole time. Up until this day, I mean, I have mean messages that come in at least a couple times a day, and comments that are mean. And, sometimes they sting. They sting a little bit differently when it's because of something that was said about you that isn't true. Those hurt because that person is, is deliberately trying to hurt you, and that hurts. But the other ones, I'm just kind of like, this is a projection. This person thinks they know something they actually have no idea about. They don't really know me. They obviously don't understand me if they think X. And I just kind of like, I try to just let it flow. And, I also, at the beginning, I thought it was funny in a sense, and it wasn't funny what they were saying. I thought it was just funny that people take it so seriously, and people to the point where they want to say something mean. Yeah. But for all the mean comments, all the people that show up on every post or still DM and all of that stuff, like I don't have anything, but I hope you get the tools that you need so that you can better yourself and you don't have to do this. Yeah. That's my wish for them. I try not to get stuck on it.
It must be like so hard,
crazy.
Like I think I hate that thing when people are like, well, like you put yourself in the limelight. So I'm like, no, hang on a minute. Just because you've got, say, I don't know, say 1 million followers, doesn't mean that you've just like held your hand up to like, yeah, it's okay. You can just message me whatever you want and say nasty things. It's cool. Like, I just don't get it. Like sometimes we get the occasional message, and I read it and I'm like, who's actually on the end
What's
of this?
going on with this person?
I'm like very good at like trying to calm the situation down, and I will always do my effort, even if like we get like a really nasty one, right? I will always reply and say like, hey.
Oh, you
like,
do?
You know I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I know, like, do you know what I mean? In the essence of it, it's like just nothing to it. But say it's like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Like, it doesn't help anyone. You think, I will like reply and say, look, this is why we do it. Like, do you know what I mean? If you would like to have a phone call with me, or you want to jump on Zoom, like, we can chat about this. Like, like, I think it's important to try and like speak to these people. If it's just like something that it isn't based on anything, and there's no, do you know what I mean? It's just nasty for nasty's sakes. But if it's like they don't understand, then I'll try and speak to them. But I sometimes sit there and I'm like, even when you get back to them and you like speak to them and say, hey, look, like it might not be for you, but like other people like it. Like, you only need to go on our followers to see that this is for some people, and it might not be for you, or you might not like it, but that's fine. But like, it doesn't mean you have to speak to us like this, but whatever. And I'm just like, read the response, or they'll reply, and I'll just be like, who actually does this? And then that's what kind of sets it to me. I'm like, okay, that's fine, because I know that I would never scroll down a post or see a footballer, or we see it. I don't know what it's like in the States with sports people. We see it with footballers a lot. Like, especially like there was an incident where like basically there was lots of racial abuse towards a few players because they'd missed the penalty.
Jeez.
And like,
Oh,
I just think to myself, like,
who are these people?
And what comes into your head when you like see it, and then that kind of sets me back. I'm like, okay, cool. Like sometimes, you know, like you just these people obviously just do inside their heads in a different place to mine. I can't expect them to think like me because, you know, not everyone does. And that's kind of what gets me through it. But it must be really difficult, you know, because you want to just do like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go on a TV show or wanting to become a footballer or whatever. And like what comes with that is like credit, followers, social media, like whatever. And it also comes with this horrible baggage. Like there was a TV show in the UK where two of the like contestants after like took their own lives, and like it was like obviously so huge news,
freaking horrible.
And it was like, you know, talking about like a lot of it, how their social like media persona was just so different to what was going on in real life, and they just felt like constantly judged and like nasty comments and stuff. And I'm just like, it's so sad that's how we've become, though, isn't it? Like that's how the majority of people have come. It's like so easy now to just jump online and say something nasty, and for some reason that makes people feel better. That's weird for me. Like I can't imagine saying nasty things would make me feel better. It would just fill my head with more negativity, you know?
Negativity, I know. I just don't, you know, having my experience, and I was literally just myself before, during, and after. This is the same me. I'm just talking about these things obviously with a broader group of people now, but it's so strange to me that people, they're so hurt or so damaged or so traumatized, whatever the word is, that they will put that out there and spread it more to other people. And then, you know, you have so many people out there doing this, and I just don't, and diagnosing, and like you, especially with like reality TV or football or any celebrity, like you don't really know. You think you know. You saw, you know, I always say to people, I'm like, you saw maybe 2 hours between Love is Blind and After the Altar, 2 hours of my life and my relationship. You don't get an opinion. You didn't live it every day. You didn't go through all of the, you know, experience and the challenges and the pain and the hurt and the heartache. So like, you don't really get that kind of opinion where you get to come in and say this, or this. And then if you have other people who are just constantly, you know, spreading that, it's just, it's like toxicity. It's just literally just a circle of cruelty. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. I can't ever imagine being really mean to someone. I was kind of mean to a politician not that long ago, but it wasn't about them. I wasn't saying you're ugly. I'm saying, you know, you're supposed to be fighting for us and you're not doing it, you know? So it's like, it's an attack on, and that's how you're supposed to be with politicians, but it's like you're supposed to do this. Yeah, and I'm not saying
like these people, you know, have to be held accountable or they have to accept the thingy, but you don't go on a reality TV show to be like, do you know what I mean, bombarded with messages. Like if it's, I suppose if it's about your job, like there's an element of like, oh my God, like you missed that field goal, like what the hell, whatever it is, do you know what I mean? Or, oh, basketball, that was a terrible game. I mean, they kind of have to accept that, right? Because people are going to comment on their performance, but it's when they, do you know what I mean? There's no like, being an influencer or whatever, like there's no performance to be commented on, right? It's just people bombarding people with like nasty messages about like, I know, things that they hear in the press or things that they see out. Do you know what I mean? Like, with loads of different
it's
stuff.
So crazy. Yeah. Well, that's its own like whole toxic conversation we could probably have. But I'm getting through it. And I think my advice to anyone listening here who either gets nasty messages or if you feel yourself compelled to write something, think about why you're feeling that way. And is it really something about them that they need to hear? That would be my advice, because chances are it's going to probably be no. But anyway, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you. And you and Boys Get Sad. Boys Get Sad too. Where can people find you?
So
on your Instagram,
you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on our website. So probably the best place, we'll have everything on there, is our website, which is www.boysgetsad2.com, and that will have all the links to all our socials and stuff. So
And we'll have all of that in the show description for those of you listening.
Amazing.
I encourage you to check it out. Yeah, this was an awesome conversation. I think with men, especially, and boys, we have to get more comfortable talking about it. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Conversations with Nick Thompson. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Links can be found in the description below, and we can't wait to see you next time.